and go live in the middle of a sentence so that they don't even know that I was just trying to figure out what to say, and it was going to take longer to figure out what to say and say something cool than to do what, and it's not Glenn Beck, who's the...
Rush Limbaugh.
To do what Limbaugh does, which is just starts talking before the mic goes, so you always feel like you're late to the conversation, and you want to know what happened before, and now everyone thinks we have a show going. Hello, everybody. It's Friday afternoon. It's the 1st of May, May Day, COVID-19 style 2020. Pastor Jonathan Fisk with Pastor Bryan Wolfmiller. We're not really planning much here other than to hang out and chat with each other, which we haven't done in, I'd say, 2.5 weeks or so.
Which is like 2 years.
And
COVID time.
As you know, if you follow or listen at all, that when Bryan and I chat, a lot of our chat is knowing God. A lot of it is theology. It's how we practice our trust of our God in our life. And so it's often worth hearing and or sharing or pondering. So we're inviting you along this afternoon, again, without a particular plan per se, but he and I just want to catch up. And now you're here too. We definitely will keep an eye on the comments in the side. And so Bryan will do that more than I think. He's probably already like deep into it. He's like, where's the one with the picture of me? Where's that one at? Where can I pull it out?
I was wondering if I should send a super chat and say, you can have Wolfmuller on your show more often.
So with Super Chat too, by the way, if you Super Chat, I'll throw it out there. You can maybe derail us, you can maybe not. The law of Super Chat it's a gift, and there is no law of Super Chat, but I always love it when you do it because it makes me feel loved. That being said, okay, so Bryan, how'd this start? You texted me because you wanted to talk about one specific thing. I said, sure, great, let's do it, and I want to catch up anyway. So that was, what was that?
A couple days ago, I got two things on my mind. They're related to each other, though. One is, I wonder. I'm reflecting about how much hasn't changed with the pandemic and the lockdown orders. I'm really intrigued by that because I was just imagining like a stay-at-home order 50 years ago versus stay-at-home order today. Like how different that is because of the ways we can communicate with each other. That was one. And then a related topic is a copyright stuff. It occurred to me as we were, everybody's posting their services online now. And 2 months ago, that was illegal to do. And
I didn't even think about that. That's a crazy thought, man. So why was that illegal? I mean, that's a jump right there. Why was it illegal a couple of months ago? Or is it still illegal and people are just doing it anyway?
Well, some things are illegal, but for example, Concordia Publishing House, who holds the copyright for the hymnal, they said during this time, there's restrictions on it. I don't know if anybody's actually paying attention to the minutia of the restrictions, but they basically said, we are giving everybody like the same permission that you would have if you were buying permission with the service builder and everything. We're basically giving everyone permission to broadcast their services. And, did you get raptured? There you go. Okay.
Can you boost your gain at all from your end? We're getting comments here a little quiet.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to boost you on my soundboard.
How about that? Is it coming in better? It might not.
Yeah, I think it is.
It could be that because Zoom will automatically level it, won't they?
Yeah, but we're not relying on Zoom too much. I got you boosted from this end now. We're good. So continue on.
What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So CPH, basically Concordia Publishing House, basically said, all right, you guys can broadcast your services, which was a change. Now and they acknowledged that was a change, right? And
yeah, right. Because prior, you would not have had the right to put into a recordable format text and music that was under copyright law, right? And it's because of the potential that it could be recorded and then sold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, what? So a couple of things were happening because the easiest way to get into, just like to think through this just a little bit. I haven't thought that far into it, so you can push me. But like you, Jonathan, always were hoping that there would be a whole network of confessional Orthodox people, pastors, and anybody, theologians, broadcasting their stuff.
Yeah.
And it never really happened. There's just a handful of us that are doing it. But you just have to, so you just look at the steps into that. And the easiest way into it is just to capture what you're doing already. But there was like a huge moat to get through to the castle of online broadcasting. And that is that if you just took the stuff that most guys are doing on most Sundays, or even on like in Bible class or services, it was locked down under copyright. Well, now, because out of necessity, I mean, guys were going to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But so CPH, God be praised, they come along and say, just do it. Don't worry about it. That's what I think they said. But so this becomes a big a thing now, because the barriers to getting online, to starting a YouTube channel, to putting videos up there have now been lowered. And you know the point of this. I mean, like, anytime you watch one of these how to start doing YouTube stuff, they'd say just start. Just get going, and you learn on the fly. I mean, you just get better at it because you're just not afraid to try. Well, there's a lot of guys that are afraid to try. Like, you know this. Evan and I have a couple guys that we'd like to have come on Table Talk when we used to have guests, and they wanted to know the questions that we were going to ask so they could prepare their answers. We're like, no, that's just not how. But guys want to
only if you want to make it boring.
For there, right? But that intimidation factor. But now guys are on it, and they're doing, and it's terrible. I mean, what is this great meme that I saw? Carrie showed it to me. It was a pastor's wife thing, and she said, "Oh Lord, please help my husband's online service not look like an Osama bin Laden capture video."
Oh, that's funny. That's great.
Really, they do. They look terrible, but it doesn't matter because they're going to get better, and they're going to get better like this.
Yeah. I mean, the curve is a spike. At least
fast.
initially. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, all the stuff is out there. So you just wonder how much suppression was happening. This is kind of because of the copyright laws. It was just kind of keeping the lid on the thing.
I think it's necessity, right? What is it? There's a proverb too, right? It's not the Bible Proverbs, but necessity is the bedfellow of invention. Is that what it is? I think that is it. And so what you see happening is that, and I weep on this a little bit, with the speed with which we said, nope, there's no way to do the Lord's Supper. A lot of guys said our only option, therefore, is to go online and do something online. And so you're just compelled to do it, because if you're not able to do something online right now, you have no contact with your flock. I mean, you can be like making a phone call to somebody every day, all day long. That would be an option, right? And maybe there's some guys that are doing out there, but far more efficient is to pull together some sort of video or audio or group meeting or whatever, right? And so you're just compelled to learn, because if you care about your people, you can't go a month and a half without making contact with them, right? And so it's necessity is the bedfellow. Is it bedfellow? Yeah. Brother.
Necessity is the mother.
There it is. Thank you.
My dad always said it like this. He said, an empty stomach makes a sharp mind.
You know what? I've been thinking about that thought, but from a totally different direction, but I love it. An empty stomach makes a sharp mind. Why are you bored? It's because you're not hungry.
You're not hungry. The hungrier you get, you're going to figure out a way to find some food, and you're going to say, I wonder if I can eat those leaves.
That's right. You just got to be hungry. We got a super chat from Mrs. Harris. She says, feel that we love you, smiley face, smiley face. Thank you, Mrs. Harris.
Is that you plural or is it you singular?
I couldn't tell you. It'd be y'all or ye, or I want to bring back the old, what is it, thou? Yeah. Thou is the...
That's singular.
The, thou... I don't think so. The is singular.
You is plural. Yes, the Y's are the plural. It has the two. The U's the plural, and the thou and thee is singular.
So wait,
thee I love. So if you say thee, that's...
So thee I love with all my heart. Like, that's the nominative, right?
Yeah.
Right.
All the T's are singular, and all the Y's are... So ye and you, that's all plural. I'm glad I could teach you something today.
Wait, but it's not yow. There's no yow.
Thou.
Okay, give me all of them and just tell me what they mean. Tell me all of them. Define them.
Ye means
you all, right?
You all, yeah,
you all. Yeah, okay.
Your, that's the genitive of second person plural. Your.
Right, and that's where there's overlap, right? Like is there a thine?
The is that, thee, thy, thou. That's all.
I'm sorry.
What's so funny?
What we're trying to do right now is going to be the worst TV show ever. Or declining the
second person pronouns,
slightly late medieval English pronouns. Here today for you, Friday afternoon. Maybe we should shift that topic back to copyright law. That's great though. No, it's ye is y'all for sure, and that's what we should bring back, and that's what got us off track. Right?
Yeah, because we're trying to figure out if Mrs. Harris loves just you. Or the both of us.
I don't know.
It's probably important to figure that out.
In Jesus, I'm sure it's the both of us, Brian, at the end of the day. So I have a little comment to continue our copyright thoughts here, because this really wasn't connected to copyright at all. But when your text came to me, it made me think, holy moly, like that's exactly the same direction of this other thought I've been having, which had more to do with, if I'm remembering right, a meditation on Gnosticism as a false teaching that is prevalent or even the primary false teaching that exists, period, right? Like all heresy is Gnosticism at the end of the day. Right. All heresy is a rejection of creation at the end of the day. And so I wrote down this little sticky note, and it says, and I'll say it twice, I think, so that you can get the idea, but free knowledge is the essence of all that is good. Hidden knowledge is the craft of wicked men and the devil himself. And then I'm going to say that again in a moment, but then what struck me was that what I just said could be summarized or bullet pointed also as Genesis 1 and 2. Free knowledge is the essence of all that is good. God speaks and it comes to be. It is good. Genesis 3, hidden knowledge is the craft of wicked men and the devil himself. You know, what you will be, but you can't see until you do it, and I'll tell you how. That's what the devil himself brings into the world, and Adam invites into the world with lies. So that the idea of copyright itself is to some extent hiding truth. But this applies to far more than just that, okay? So I'm not the crusader against copyright just yet, although I don't care. That's kind of my position. I'm apathetic. It's the society I live in. I will pray for its well-being, and whatever it has, I'll work with it for what it is. But for me, this is an even bigger idea, to know that when I'm talking with you as a friend and I don't give you all that I could for your good and information, I hide it from you, that this is the lie, right? When I go to religion and they say, you will know later when you've done this or after you've come through this, that's again the lie, right? So this is so much bigger than just hiding things from the eyes of individuals now, although when you're hiding, say, the gospel from people behind a paywall, that might be a thing that we shouldn't do, right? All of that swirls around. I don't think you can debate the copyright law. I don't think you can debate my concept that free knowledge is good and hidden knowledge is generally frowned upon in the Bible.
You're right. I'm going to scoop in the copyright thing and then see if I can take a couple steps in your direction. So, because I think what's happened now, we'll have to see what's happening in, I don't know, in a couple of years maybe, or a couple of decades, or maybe a couple of months. But the idea that knowledge, that knowledge has value in its by being rare. That's the basis of copyright law, right? If we can make knowledge rare, then it gives it value. And that is
fixing the market, man.
So what has happened? I mean, the problem now is that no longer is knowledge rare. I mean, that's what the internet has done. It's democratized information. So you have to capture value in a different way. But to scoop in the Gnostic question, because the irony is that Gnosticism means knowledge, right? Gnosis. Gnosis. But it's a hidden knowledge. It's a secret knowledge, which is so it's not it's the mystery religion, right? It's you got to be inducted, but you got to come behind the curtain to have this knowledge, and we're not going to let it go out there. There's no torn curtain. It's all in darkness. It's all shrouded. It's all hidden, and that is the currency that the devil deals in. So I've been trying to figure this out for a while, and this is you've given me another little piece. You remember when the devil is tempting Adam and Eve in the garden? And he said, did God really say you shouldn't eat any of these trees? And Eve's like, what? No, we're supposed to eat all of these trees except for that one right there. And the devil comes along and says, Eve in fact says, you shouldn't even touch it, or you'll die. And the devil says, you won't surely die, for God knows that on the day that you eat of it, you will be like him.
Yeah, secret knowledge.
That's a secret. In other words, the devil could have just said, you won't die. When you eat of it, you'll be like God. But that little phrase, God knows, that is added in there and that's the key part of the temptation, right? That God has something that he hasn't told you. He's holding back. And what's in that hidden knowledge is what motivates God. In fact, in the hidden knowledge is the motive of God's crime of forbidding the eating of the fruit, you see. God knows.
Yeah. The lie is that there's some knowledge that doesn't exist.
Working in that.
The lie is that there's some knowledge that doesn't really exist until you know it. Right? You hear what I'm saying? And so you're always tempted to want to peer behind the curtain. Someone asked this question. Actually, this maybe connects. So let me throw this in there. How does Netherius asks, how does Deus absconditus apply to this? Right, the hidden God. So, what do you want to take a stab at that?
Well, yeah. This is Luther's whole big deal. He starts to develop this in the great Heidelberg Theses, and then he really pushes it through. And so, one of the ways to understand Luther's whole program was, it was against the hidden God. It was against the quest to find the hidden God. And that's what he understood scholasticism to be. So you're trying to find God according to his essence. You're trying to find God according to his power or according to his glory, rather than according to his word. And God can't be found that way. It's forbidden for us to look for God that way. If God would be found that way, we would be destroyed, because God has to cloak himself in the humanity and humility of Jesus to be a saving God for us. But that quest to sneak up and look at God nude, the Deus nudus. How do you say nude? And
there is a phrase. Oh man, but I don't remember it.
I got it here in the books.
That's right.
Books. You were making fun of the books. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go get one. I'm gonna get the book that
Who
has
needs books when you have a wall like a caveman does? That's all I need. So since you went, I'm just gonna go ahead and point out what you taught me years ago to see in the beloved Revelation chapter 7, in a distinction between seeing and hearing, as John looks upon the uncountable number that he heard only as 144,000, that trying to see God is part of our error as well, as opposed to what we were created to do, I think, which was hear God. And in this, I see some marvelous beauty also in who Jesus is, who is the antidote to our fall in so many ways. He is what we didn't ask. No, he is what we tried to take, and God gives by joining, right? And so it's really a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah. And he says, eat it. Take and eat.
Yeah. It's incredible. Super chatters continue to jump in. William Gaminer's thrown it in twice in order to get some El Guapo onto the screen. What is the 10 peso version El Guapo? Thank you for the Three Amigos reference point. Singing bushes are always appreciated here. And then Nate Brown had chatted in a little bit earlier. Thank you both for all of your work, pastors. See, he made clear to say that it was a plural reality, reality. Okay, so we can keep running with this idea because it is important. But I want to see how it's important to like the immediacy of the moment right now, where how do I say this? I see the belief that's assumed by most Christians, and certainly assumed by the politicians about Christianity, that we can just retreat to online conversations with each other and our religion will just be fine, as Gnosticism confessed. Now, Christians can rightfully do this under their lords and masters in love and charity. So it's not the Christians' problem. It is the non-Christians' problem. That they are forcing us into a more Gnostic practice, which directly will remove from us the center of what we do when we come together, when we religiousize together in the supper, right? And so this Gnostic attack of the hidden knowledge, it's saying all Christianity is knowledge you need to learn. So go learn it on the internet, or maybe an experience you need to watch. So go watch it on the internet. It is not a physical reality. And Christianity's particular exclusion of all other religions is because of the physical reality of the body of Jesus. It is because it is a scandalously particular, unique, historical, local reality, right? So I don't think this is just about copyright, but it is also about copyright. And I'm with you too that when we chain the word as the free information of God, the heralded proclamation, what I whisper to you, shout on the rooftops, if we chain that in any way, even for the sake of, what do you call it, for capturing its value, I got to make a living too, so I get it, right? but do I make my living capturing the value of the Word of God by fixing the market, by creating a stockhold of it so you can't get it, right? So it costs more now. Or do I believe that the Word of God is a bountiful crop that restores itself 100-fold and just cast that bread on the wind, right? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do with my work. That's what I'm doing with this channel, and it's working, right? So I'm not saying this because I don't like what some other organization is doing. I'm saying this because I think it's wise to do it, and I'm trying to do it. So I want to make sure I say that before I get perhaps accused of saying something else that I didn't say.
No, I mean, this is 100% right. It's so there's a materialist view that things are limited, and the economics of this is a cheesy thing, but God's economics have to do with farming. You're sowing the seed, and there's a multiplication of the seed. I mean, the harvest is 10-fold or 100-fold or whatever. It's not you don't plant one seed and get one tree. You plant a seed and you get a crop. That's the point. But there's something else here, because I'm interested in the other side of things. But so if you go down your path, and then I got another path to go down.
Go. I'm just frolicking in the chaos of it all.
I did. We did a video a couple of weeks ago about, and I know you watch every video that I publish.
Totally.
And you watch them twice, 3 or 4 times.
I have time to spend my Table Talk radio points on.
You do. You watch the videos and you take notes. How did he do that? How did he make such? So
what I do is I keep a running catalog in my subconscious psyche of all the times a day people from somewhere tell me about how great what Bryan did online today was. And I let that be the spark which keeps me in guilty conscience working longer hours than I should.
Everybody should blind copy me on those emails that you send Fisk, because I also get
my own dear beloved wife.
Meredith is telling you about my YouTube video.
So she got something good out of it. And some of my members,
I love that. That makes me really happy.
I am pointing my members to both St. Paul Austin and to Village Ladue. So sometimes my members come back and, that Bryan, he's really good. I'm like, yeah, he's great. Yeah, I'm glad you're listening to him. That's why I pointed you to him. I forgot. I had something else I was going to say. I forgot it. So you keep going.
So video, there was the reason why canceling church is the hardest and the easiest for the Lutherans. So there's a reason why it's the hardest, because the Lutherans, unlike anybody else, have the body and the blood, and you can't do anything else with it except for eat it. So the Protestants don't have the body and the blood, so there's nothing lost. I mean, they basically are Gnostics already. Right. They just talk about which is why we don't
commune with them. Honestly.
They're talking about the difficulty of the church not meeting together, which is fine, but it's a sociological phenomenon. It's certainly not a sacramental.
It's a first article phenomenon.
Right.
It's difficult for humans not to meet together. I mean, you're acting like some sort of super spiritual condition. There's nothing special about it for Christians.
Mm-hmm. And which is why, by the way, the Protestants can have a mega church, because they don't have pastors. The pastor is just a conveyor of information, and the Bible is just a conveyor of information. There's no meal. It's like there's no. Anyway,
basic instructions before leaving Earth. Yada
you got the Catholics on the other side, and you know how the Catholics are. It's amazing to watch the Catholic virtual service, which is the pastor or the bishop or the priest or whatever at his home altar sacrificing the mass, and it's giving you a prayer to pray so you can participate in it from a distance. I mean, they have a Gnostic view of the supper too, because it's like a merit. It's the old heresy 2-step. You make it into an abstraction, and then the Catholic Church has always been obsessed with the idea of banking. For them, salvation is the you got a treasury, and you can write a check. You can send a super chat. So by praying this prayer, they participate in the sacrifice that the priest is making via super chat or whatever, And so it also has this kind of transfer from a distance. Only the Lutherans say it's the body and blood, and you get the benefit of it by eating it. It's not instituted to be adored at a distance or anything else like this. And that's unique to the Lutheran Church. No other church has that theology of the supper, which makes canceling the service the very most difficult for us. But at the same time, the other unique doctrine that the Lutheran Church has is the efficacy of the word. No other church also has the efficacy of the word. And the word of God, the gospel preached, is the gospel at a distance, which means that that there is something true that happens when someone listens to a sermon online, or when someone reads a devotion that was written by their pastor, some pastor or whatever. There's something true that's happening there, and nobody else has that either. And that's not Gnosticism. That the idea that the gospel is, that the word of God is the gospel at a distance, is a truth that is being realized now by the church. Now that practically has questions, because now we got to ask, I mean, just again, this is real practical, moving kind of too fast from the theological to the practical. But what parts of the church are scalable and what parts are not? Because the word is in some ways scalable. As soon as Paul writes a letter and he says, after you read it, share it with the Thessalonians, and also you should read the letter I wrote to them. As soon as that happens, what we realize is that the word of God is scalable, that the gospel, that Paul's preaching can be transferred over time and space and to different people. Paul doesn't have to be there for his preaching to be efficacious. And we're the only ones that have the capacity to understand that. And so we should be in some ways on the very forefront. We used to be with the Lutheran Hour back in the 1917 or whenever they invented the Lutheran Hour.
Don't get me going.
How many
just so everyone knows what I'm doing now. There's a beer comment. Oh, I'm done. I just drank 2 waters because I was really thirsty. It's hot in here. And now I'm gonna drink this one a little more slowly. But cheers, world. Pacifico. I bought this and Instagrammed it with the phrase shelter in place before I sheltered in place. Same 12-pack. Doing pretty well. But I love a good Pacifica Clara when I get a chance.
That's making me thirsty. Afternoon. You know what I've got in the fridge over there?
What?
Red Stripe.
Ew. I mean, I got limits, man.
Not me, man. Wow. Should I tell you my Red Stripe story?
You may. We're live, right? We're live and stuff.
I know. Well, I was in Fiji.
Is it like the tequila story?
No,
I'm just kidding.
I don't know the tequila story.
Yeah, no, I was just.
I was in Fiji. I was 19 years old. Me and Daryl were there. We were the only 2 guys. We went early, and our job was to buy a bus and a house. So we went to Fiji to buy a bus and a house to manage all these kids that were coming in. They were going to come on, we were working for this adventure travel company. And so all the high school kids come in week after week. So we had a week to buy. So we stayed in this hotel in Nandi, Fiji. And I just remember sitting in the porch of this hotel with the first night in Fiji with Daryl, and the palm trees are out there, and the smell of the city that's not under any sort of, emissions control. So just gasoline but the palm trees there. And so you have this kind of wild mixture of smells, the Indian food. And I'm drinking Red Stripe, and the song on the club next door is this Your Woman by, who played that song? Dun, 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 dun. So that all is congealed in this wonderful memory.
I wish I knew the song.
It's not that good, but every once in a while I play it when I'm doing dishes. And Carrie's like, this is not a good song.
I love how stuff like that can bring back the memory of a place, the sense and the sounds, particularly of a location that's like that.
Now.
Yeah.
I gotta go get a red.
We did get a super chat that is theological from Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker, a super supporter here on Mad Christianity. What podcast? No, bonus casting world. He says Lutherans accept the mystery of Christ's words. Catholics and Calvinists attempt to explain, aka Gnosticize, right? Gnosticize, noeticize. You can see in that GN the KN of the English knowledge. It's weird, but that's where it came from. Because they try to explain what it is. A true mystery can only diminish in trying to explain it. Very annoying, right? Because a knowledge that is true without me having to know it must diminish for me to know it. As I know it, it diminishes, right? And so this is the humiliation of Jesus in some amazing way, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, there's so much there. Because so the secret knowledge means that if it's not secret, if you have it, then I don't. Then it's diminished. I mean, the reason I can stay above you or different than you or more important than you or have power over you is because I have knowledge that you don't have. So the knowledge has to be rare for that stratification of power to exist. And Gnosticism lives on that. Christianity is the opposite. It's the precise opposite. I mean, as soon as Jesus calls fishermen to be the disciples or shepherds to be a spokesman, you know it's going to be absolutely different. It's all people. It goes to everybody. It's not. It's going out, and there's no special class. There's no expert class in the church.
So what do you say to someone who says that the pastor is that, though, and that Missouri Synod pastors do that?
Do they?
I don't know. I mean, why do you need a pastor for? Why don't you just have the Bible and whoever is there that day?
Well, you don't need the pastor because he knows more theology than everybody. I mean, the pastors should be apt to teach. So that because we live in, because the church is an economy of words. But the point is, that you have someone who's teaching these things, and if the pastor said, "Look, I know this and you don't," like I'm the pastor because I know Greek and I'm not going to tell you. I'm the pastor because I've got a Bible in my office and I'm not going to let you in. I'm just going to tell you what it says. That is abuse. There's an abusiveness to Gnosticism. So the whole point of the pastor is that he's making everybody a theologian. Every Christian is a theologian. Every father is a pastor in his house. Every mother is a lady bishop to her kids. I mean, every Christian is a confessor.
If I can jump in, I think it's just so important. I've been pondering this a lot recently. I have not written this down anywhere yet, but it's so important that we recognize how greatly we've lost a biblical understanding of the office of the holy ministry, and I think as the Missouri Synod we have misconstrued it accidentally. So the word, if we're going to call ourselves pastors, is the word shepherd, right? It is not business manager, and it is not teacher either. It is shepherd. Shepherd does not mean handholder. It does not mean friend. It means one who watches and guards. And so do you have to be, to get back to your thing, do you have to be the most knowledgeable of the sheep to be the shepherd, right? Is that what happens? So we put the smartest guy there. And the answer is no. In fact, the habit of the shepherd does not require a great deal of book knowledge at the end of the day. Quite the opposite. What it does require is a great deal of conviction about a very central, even limited number of truths that are omnipotent, right? And once a man knows to confess that and nothing else, the rest of it, in a sense, doesn't matter. And this is one of the things about going to Bible study, and even the Bible studies that I teach and are like my bread and butter at the LCMS, it's like at a certain point you make an educated, a civilized reading requirement for Christianity, right? And that's what we got to be able to get away from in understanding the office of the ministry even. Is that basic, but not so basic that there's no truth, because there's another side to this horse, Brian. You know that, right? I started by trying to call out the other side, now I'm defending you. The other side of the horse, though, is that there is no truth, there is no teaching, there is no knowledge, right? It's all open, kind of democratic spirituality, and everyone loves that idea anyway these days.
Well, they go together because, look, if the person who doesn't know what they're talking about is always going to try to shut down, to make sure nobody else also knows what they're talking about, and be shutting them down that way. So as soon as we have an open economy of theological knowledge in the church, the pastor better actually be continuing to study and know his stuff, because when the congregation is also studying to be theologians, and even the non-intellectual Christian is a student. So a disciple is a student. Then the pastor is going to have to continue in his curiosity and in his training. He can't rest. So as soon as you see a pastor who is acting like he's the possessor of the secret knowledge, you know that probably he's ignorant and he wants to keep everybody else ignorant. That's the kind of the power play that starts to happen in there. We want to press the other way, so that now everybody's a theologian. The pastor has to keep on his chops because everyone's asking him these crazy hard questions all the time. Even the farmer and the kids are asking these great questions and meditating on
I'm still coming to this conviction that, like, by hard, like, I think the category that we put hard in is like knowing who Hezekiah was, right? Like I got to know all these like names and dates, and the doctrine of the Trinity is really difficult, but I can pass it on a quiz if I have to, but it's kind of tough. It's like that's what we think of when we say hard. And what's been getting me in the last 2 months is I've had a existential experience of watching a pandemic sweep the world, right? And reckoning with where my real, at least personal weaknesses, the way I see them, are. The thing that's hard is having the conviction to really believe and do it without fear, and to take a stand on things in even like what you might call joy or a comforting confidence. That's what's hard. And that's what the discipline of Christianity is here to train us to be better at and to get good at, so you get stronger, right? And it becomes less hard to do what you later then call easy discipline as a Christian. But none of this is about memorizing diagrams. The diagrams aren't bad necessarily, but it's like we've replaced the conviction with the memorization of charts. And that's a problem in my book.
There's something important there, because it's not just it's what my mentor pastor Sinkbile calls the habitus of a pastor. There's a theological habitus. It's not just a matter of like you got a thing that you checked off and now you know all this stuff.
I'm going to interrupt you. It's spelled Habitus, and it's the word habit is related to this, not the word hobbit as in Lord of the Rings. So the habitus are not along with the entitus and whatnot. So please continue.
Habitus.
It's like habit, right? Just hear the word habit.
Habitus.
You might be pronouncing it correctly. I just want everyone who's listening to have a connection point.
I'll pronounce it better. Habitus.
There you go.
Habitus.
But you want to talk about
habitus. It's just stuff. It's the stuff, It's the soldier stuff, I mean, you could know all about the tactics, but you also got to just
do it.
Yeah,
do it.
Throw the spear. So
I'm on this. I want to. Nate Brown. I'm going to do a super chat real fast and then push back at you. Nate Brown says,
how do you turn on super chat? I got to turn super chat on in my YouTube channel because nobody ever gives me money like this.
Oh, you make more money than I do every month already, and you know it. You have such an advantage over me. It's hilarious. But in any case, I will leave it to Dr. Google to answer that simple question for you. It'll take you 15 minutes, and I know how annoying that is because I hate doing that too. But I had to learn the hard way, man.
All right, fine. I'll learn the hard way.
Nate Brown asks, do either of you have some books titles to help explain The Office? I'd say the Herman Stott's The Lonely Way series, both volumes, if you really want to go deep on where my theology has been formed. Also to boost John Marquardt, any comment on the recent Lutheran Hour embrace and promotion of the Bible Project and its sponsors? Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So that's two questions there. Why don't you take the first one, Bryan, again? Books on the Office of the Ministry.
The best on this is Martin Chemnitz's In Caridian, which is a great little text. It's like, Martin Chemnitz wrote the little book about you should know all these things before you're a pastor, and he put it there, and so that's good. I mean, it's just like an outline for stuff, and he talks a lot about the office in there. It's so important because we do not think in terms of office. It's part of the American mind, probably. We just don't think in terms of a duty or office or vocation or calling. So it's a problem. So we need to, though, because there's, well, it goes back to this calling to be a pastor. It's like, so is someone a pastor because they have the capacity to be a pastor? No, someone's a pastor because they're called to be a pastor, and they ought to strive for their capacity to meet the office. But that's important.
On officer, real fast, it helped me a little bit just this year to realize we do use the word in English still all the time when we say, don't get pulled over by a police officer. A police officer works for the polis. Polis is the Greek word city. So he's the city officer, the one who officiates the authority of the city. And so we just happen to have in the church an ecclesial, a ministerial, a pastoral officer. And that's what a pastor is. He's authorized to speak the word of God. I still agree with you completely. We don't think in office authority terms. We are an anti-authority culture top to bottom. I'd say our greatest commandment that we despise the most is the fourth commandment for that reason. Pushing back toward habitus, though. So here's the thing that I continue to reckon with.
Speaking of, my dad just called me, and I didn't even answer.
You will not live long in the land, Bryan.
I should just hold on.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm pretty sure that's not quite what that meant. Why is it? Why is it that I, as an LCMS pastor, who loves the Bible, loves Scripture, loves Jesus, have never tried to be a bad pastor? I've always tried to be a good pastor. I've always tried to do all things well. Why is it that when I had the opportunity, because of COVID, to strategically reformat my week and day to absolutely prioritize some things I really wanted to, including, and with absolute priority, first thing in the morning, an hour and a half to 2 hours of prayer and studying the scriptures. Why is it that when I start doing it, I begin to feel guilty as if I should be doing more somewhere else at that time? Why is that my temptation? Why is my temptation that somehow I'm wasting time that I might better spend, and oftentimes it's even doing work for the church is like what's in the back of my head, although I don't know that I verbalize that. And then the battle I've been having, the hard thing, you mentioned this is all out of that hard things earlier. The hard thing has been to say, well, you know what? The most important thing I'm going to do today is not pray. Now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to open all these resources I have set up for it. I do the same set of things every single day. It's marvelous. I always enjoy it. Exquisite. It's the most valuable gift of my day. But I can't feel okay doing it. But I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to believe that the most important thing I could do today, ever, is pray. Read a psalm out loud as a habit. Let it be true. Seek to hunger for more, right? And let it inspire me to think on my life and my congregation. So that's the discipline I'm diving into in this, and I'm so thankful for the spontaneous English God put on the world for a moment here, because that's what I've been finding is a hard thing, that I needed time. I need 2 hours to discipline my body to do this. Right, to pray and think on the words and return to them, to memorize them, but why the guilt? That's what I still can't figure out. Was it that my Germanic, LCMS Saxon, somewhat inbred heritage, the LCMS shares? Is it my American pragmatism and the reigning terror of the clock? What's the silly little truth I believe that's a lie that's making me think reading the Psalms is a waste of my time?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, because I'm trying to figure that out too. So here, okay, so three things.
Need water after that one.
I'll forget. So one is that I've heard some of these evangelical guys as they reflect on COVID, and one guy said, this was really interesting. He said, maybe the Lord is recouping the rest that we owed him. So it's like remember how the Lord, one of the reasons why he exiled the people to Babylon was because they never had a Jubilee year. And so the Lord says, you owe me 70 Jubilee. You owe me 70 Sabbaths.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's why the exile was 70
Well, you
years.
can't do the Jubilee year because the economy fall apart and never get started again.
Well, that's it. That's the point,
I
right?
know it
They
is.
never did the Jubilee year because they couldn't stop because they were worried that the Lord wouldn't provide for them. So
Yeah.
you work. You work through the Jubilee year. You work through the Sabbath years. In fact, it wasn't just a Jubilee. It was all the Sabbaths year. It was supposed to be every 7 years they took time off, and they didn't rest. And so the Lord said, "I'm going to get my rest." Boom, and everybody's under Sabbath. So they said, "Is this the Lord recouping the Sabbath that we owed him?" Which is a brilliant thought. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a good way to think about it.
It is a good way to think. I love that thought entirely. This is why I get back to my bit about prayer being the most important thing we do. And I think what I'm trying to make myself believe is like this is the weapon of warfare, Jonathan Fisk. You silly man. You're paid to do this, if nothing else. This gets back to the office of the ministry thing, right? Yeah, what is the office of the ministry? What should I be doing with my time? Should I be sending email? Does the world need more email? Is that what the church is? If only I sent that one. That's at Judgment Day, right, Brian? Like, I'll be waiting to get in, and guys be like, well, you know that one email you could have sent on Friday night at 10:15? You didn't.
Yeah,
that's
right.
the problem.
Why didn't you forward those things?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but that's...
So Dr. Sinkbile quotes Eugene Peterson, who quotes Melville. Here's the quote.
Share the name of that book to answer the question about books explaining the author office. The Care of Souls. There we go.
Well, this is Sinkbile's book on the habitus thing, but the other one was the Enchiridion.
Yeah, Enchiridion with Chemitz. We've recommended that here before. So
in Moby Dick, there's a whaling thing, right? And so the most important guy on the boat. This is according. I can't remember this from Moby Dick because I read Moby Dick, and I think I got like 3/4 into the thing, and I realized I don't. And then, so I didn't get to the good part apparently, where they get the whale. The first part was great.
Go down the other. Just watch Star Trek 2, man. That does it all for you. That's all you need to know.
What was the guy that the like the hunter from Africa who the guy that had the great name?
Yeah, at the beginning, Ishmael, right?
Not Ishmael. Ishmael's like the guy roommate that Ishmael's with.
Oh, I don't know. I never read it. I just watched Star Trek 2. I'm not kidding.
All right, I'll go watch that. But I hear he won't watch Star Trek with me. I got the free CBS All Access.
Well, it's not the new Star Trek 2. It is the old Star Trek 2.
That's even harder for me.
It's based on Moby Dick. They quote lines from Ahab at the end. I mean, it's built into the script. It's good stuff.
So here's the point: is that the guy who throws the spear is not allowed to participate in any of the work. So they could be sinking. The boat could be sinking. Everyone's bailing them out and trying to row and adjust the sails and tie the knots, and everyone's going crazy. And if you're the spear guy, the spear thrower guy, you do not work. You are strictly forbidden from getting involved in the
and the reason for this is
because you have to rise to throw your spear from the point of calmness and rest. So that if you're busy
focus.
When you're busy working on the knots or the sails or anything, when it's time to throw the spear, the reason why you're out in the waves to begin with, the reason if you're going to accurately throw the spear, you have to be rested.
You're talking about decision fatigue, man.
So So Eugene Peterson, I think, in The Contemplative Pastor, which I always am a little bit embarrassed to mention Eugene Peterson, but he draws this point out in the book, is that this is the real work of pastoral care, is that you have to be able to throw the dart and hit the target. And to do that, you rise to that work from a point of rest. Now, it's just, that is, for me, impossible. I mean, I shouldn't say impossible, but certainly from my own flesh, and certainly from like my own specific flesh, if I'm on a boat, like I want to be the guy rowing the hardest, tying the best knots. And certainly if there's disaster happening, I want to be there doing it.
Yeah.
But there's something like that happens in the book of Acts where the deacons are appointed to the waiting of the table.
Sometimes Moses just has to lift his hands in the air though, too, Well, and that's the thing, right? So who are you? I don't know. But to be the guy who is prepared for that moment, everyone is that, right? You could apply that to whoever you are. I want the guy who is doing whatever we would consider the most menial labor in the world to be rested for that labor so that he does it as well as he can. I think that's paradise. Yeah. So you're right to say that it's your flesh that can't do it. What I've been, again, having the Lord discipline me in particularly is that very thing. And I'm entering what I can only call an experience of repentance being foisted upon me. COVID being the catalyst for it. It's not that I have more time. My days are just as full as they've been, but I've been able to, again, fill them more with the right things. And that is something to rejoice on. So I want to push on, you had asked or wanted to talk about the things we haven't lost. And I want to get to that first. This super chat still hanging here. That is helping out another guy just in the chat room asking about, John Marquardt asks, any comment on the recent Lutheran Hour embrace and promotion of the Bible Project and its sponsors? I don't know about the news personally, but I know I have used the Bible Project extensively, and by and large, like 98% of it, I'm like, this stuff's amazing. So I don't got a problem with that. I don't know about the sponsors at all. Anything?
I don't know. I do like the Bible Project, their overview of the Bibles. The guys are a little bit, I mean, they'll give kind of nods to social justice stuff. So you can tell that who their audience is. They're shooting for millennials, but I think the quality of their work is great. I think the first time I saw it, I sent you an email back when you used to check your emails. And you're like, oh man, this is the kind of thing that you had imagined too, like the Bible in 10 minutes and stuff like that.
Yep. They were doing it.
So they're doing it. And so that's great. So,
it'd be nice if it was a little more sacramental, but I mean, there are very few of them that I've looked at where I'm like, yeah, I can't rely on anybody watching that. Most of them is like, even the heresy that I think I found in like the Trinity one, like I really think there's a heresy in the Trinity one. Like no one else would pick up on it or confess it ever. Like it was like this little blip in the thing. So, I find them pretty amazing. I must confess, though, as the comment pointed out, the Lutheran Hour, I do not follow the LCMS or its politics at this point in my life. So I don't know much about those things anymore. And
I don't know if we can continue this conversation now that you've admitted that.
I am still in confessional and sacramental union with the LCMS. I just don't follow them social media wise and politically.
Look. So I mean, the point is they're not Lutheran, the Bible Project guys. So you have to listen with discernment. But listen,
True.
I mean, just so you have to you can never turn off your discernment. Just because something is an RSO of the Missouri Synod or published by CPH, or you never can stop discerning. So
yeah, that's exactly right. I say this on my shows as often as it comes up to think about, which is often, don't trust me, for pity's sakes. Like I'm here with you. I'm walking with you. At times you are following me, but if you put your trust in me, you are going to be severely disappointed. Severely disappointed. I can smile and shrug, but I by no means am the solution, nor are you, Bryan, right? So this gets us back to the office of the ministry stuff and recognizing that what is to be known is already known. There's nothing to be found. There's nothing to be revealed. There's no secret. And this is where, so secret knowledge, Gnosticism always loves prophecy and the idea that there can be more prophecy and all this, guys. We don't need to chase that now, though. What I want to come back to after, I'm going to pit stop and mention that as you mentioned, being on a boat and working the hardest, my family and I are in serial format watching Ben-Hur together. And dear heavens, is that a good movie? It is slow as the day is long, but the script is dynamic. In fact, I'm going to call for a complete overhaul redoing of it in the present age. Totally worth it. Could be done with great new actors. I'm willing to direct it if anybody out there has the funds to make it happen. But that being said, you should go check out Ben-Hur and some other old classics with your family if you're stuck at home and bored. Man, what a great movie. Good book, too, by the way, if you ever read it.
I've started that a couple of times. First 10 pages of Ben-Hur, I've probably read 5 times. Where do you get that?
Okay. If you're having trouble with the first 10 pages of Ben-Hur, skip the part about the Magi at the beginning. Just skip the whole prologue with the Magi and go to the beginning of the story, and the story will take off almost right away. The Magi part's completely boring. It's cool once you realize what he's doing. It's like, oh, he's just like really carefully doing a creche, like in literature format. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But the real story isn't that at all. So I just brought that up because I'd written it down, because on it and in that story, you end up with Judah Ben-Hur, a prince of Judea, in a slave galley, the only unchained slave rowing to their deaths in this big phenomenal moment. So anyhow, be the hardest guy working and whatnot. The idea of what we have not lost in COVID, helping us to see what the real things are. I have one more thing before that thought. Which is my wife and I have a joke that I just got to share now, and we'll see how long it takes anybody to figure it out, including yourself. But we've been thinking about making things better at our church with all the COVID that's going on. Just consider this a public service announcement. At our church, we feel that the neighborhoods are living in a little more fear than normal, and that people feel that the world is a little too hard to come by and struggle with, and they don't know what to do. And so we want to start a group to get together and find what we can do for the neighborhood. And we're thinking we're going to call it the Help All Teach Everybody group. So we're going to have a Help All Teach Everybody group, or HATE group for short, that's going to be doing work in the neighborhood with throughout the COVID event. So our Christianity and our HATE group are here for you in Rockford. Okay, let's continue. I hope nobody cuts that up and plays it at my court-martial martyrdom judgment, because if they're going to convict me, let it not be for something as silly as that. So
being a hater?
Yeah, being a hater. Let it be for the resurrection of Jesus.
You should have it on your T-shirt, H-A-T-E.
The hate group. We need to help everybody help all teach everybody group. Love it. So
this is how when Flammy came on at Hope back in the old days, I said, well, that makes me now.
Speaking of hate groups, when Flammy came on. That's
right. Well, this is a similar acronym joke. I became the what? Well, now I'm just yeah, intentional senior lead administrative ministry servant.
Oh, there's so much there. What is that? Islam?
Islam.
Jeez, you're gonna get us both killed, Brian. Just don't draw a picture.
That's right. Oh, man.
What have we not lost? The conversation and that joke with my wife is because through all of this, I've not lost my wife. My relationship with my family has been strengthened. We take a walk almost every day, which is a brand new thing, and we are praying that we retain it. In fact, my kids have begun publishing a newspaper every week on family events. They send it to their grandparents and whatnot. And one of the chief elements or chief stories of last week's newspaper was about how some people had missed a couple of walks that week, and the rest of the family were hoping that this would not become normal. And the some people was me. So I'm reading about myself in the paper, third person, the family dynamics for me has been the biggest change outside of, say, what I would say my prayer life and Bible study. The biggest positive that I still have. But I know you have a lot you want to say on this, so you take it wherever you want to go.
No, you're fine. I think this is. I mean, one of the things that this is helpful for is that we say all the time the family is the building block of the culture and society, and now this, in some ways, it sort of proves it. You cannot make families social distance from one another, and as it should be. So that closest bond is manifest in this.
It's interesting, the idea of the schools being of government schooling. I mean, I've heard this. There was a guy from Harvard in the last couple of weeks who actually made this pronouncement that the problem with homeschooling is that they're not able to control the minds of the next generation. And so you're not able to mold society as you want to do and all this kind of nonsense stuff. So the idea of a universal school is not just a matter of educating the kids to be able to do 2 + 2. There are definite political, social engineering experiments going on, and there's a tug of war. Politics is not the point so much here, but that the idea of having these schools wherein all the children are raised by Big Brother for you has some challenges with COVID. Basically, right? Although what I don't get about this, and this is where sometimes I got a lot of questions about COVID. I don't want to chase all of them today, but wait a minute. So if the kids are safe by and large from this thing, technically the schooling isn't a problem at all. We just don't want it bouncing from them back and forth through the neighborhoods, I think, is why we have it now. But they're not under any danger from COVID. But it does bring up the reality that viruses are here, that this is just one of what researchers have said for decades we could face regularly as a species for the rest of forever till Jesus gets back. So just because one doesn't hit the kids doesn't mean another won't. And so anything where you put everyone in a group in a hole is bad practice in virology, right? I mean,
right. Well, the other thing that's interesting, so to take it from like public school to college, so Hannah's in college, right? And and she's home now, and all her classes are online, and so there was the colleges had to make a decision. They had to decide. They had to say either the value that we're giving now online is the same as the value that we were giving in person, and therefore keep sending us tuition, or the value that we're giving online is less than the value we were giving in person, therefore we're going to give you a tuition break. In other words, they had to make an argument about their value.
Right.
And they had, and just probably economically, they were forced into either arguing or admitting or lying that online value is just as good as in-person value. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what's been presented.
Let me say what I said to two people in my area just last Sunday afternoon, where we do meet for the supper, and so we do have less than 11 people, 10 people in the building at a time to make that happen. So we were talking as we were cleaning up, the last three of us, and I asked the question, as one of them is a public school parent and one of them is a local private school parent, how long until you decide that you overseeing the pointing and clicking on the computer for $4,000 a year could be done for free, and probably should be, since that's what's happening anyway? How long is Jesus coming through the internet learning? And I think if you work at an LCMS school, you need to ask that question right now. I'm not saying that to hurt feelings. I'm saying you got to watch next fall like a hawk, because it is going to get tight, I think. Because if it's all stuck online, I'm not paying $4,000 a month or a year for just some online Jesus. I mean, I don't know how you do it.
I was just thinking about this. I mean, so with this idea of what is reproducible and what's not. So like we have this worldwide Bible study on Tuesday. Everybody who's watching should come to that, because it's really good.
I've heard good things about it, Brian.
Well, thank you. What does Meredith think about it?
I don't know if that's what she listened to or not. She did enjoy the one. Yeah.
So, I gotta ask Carrie if she watches it.
What I look forward to is like when you're like youngest son, like you're gonna be on your deathbed, dying. Your youngest son's gonna come in. He's been like maybe rebellious for a while, and you're gonna be like, son, my only wish is that you would come to Christ again. He's like, Father, I found this thing called Worldview Everlasting. It's these old videos with this guy, and you know what? I believe again. So it's because of him.
So. Now what? The Tuesday. Yeah. So the Tuesday Bible class. Here's the amazing thing, is that I can bring into that class anybody in the whole world to teach.
Yeah.
I could grab a guy from the seminary and say, "Hey, come and teach for a little bit."
That's cool.
And now we have an online class with the best in the world teaching it, and anybody who wants to can come into it.
Dude, it's like TED Talks. That's awesome.
How long until I say, instead of paying this guy down the street to teach my kid physics, why don't I find the best physics teacher in the world?
Why doesn't the best physics teacher in the world just start offering classes online out of his closet?
Yes, and then the question is,
no one should do that except me and Brian. Just me and Brian. No one else.
So I mean, but how long until that happens? Until there's a kind of true democracy of education, and all sorts of other things.
It's happening already. But you're asking, I got to dive into that. It's happening already, and those who are going to be the pioneers of knowledge in the next generation, the next century, are doing it or learning that way. But the nobility of higher education is going to float on like the nobility of the English kingdom for a while.
So this is now starting to crumble, because you have the baby boomers who are kind of preserving these institutions and doing, this is how we got here. So if you want to get here, you got to get here the same way, and then you go down the same path. Us, whatever we are, what are we? Gen X.
We're probably Gen X.
So the baby boomers say you got to get here this way, and so you get there that way, and you get there, and they're like, well, we're still here, and you're like, well, we're here now too, and they're like, well, we're not leaving. Well, you told us, and then the millennials are like, I'm not going to do what those guys did, because you get there and you're not. So it's starting to happen, and so the whole kind of career path that's kind of sketched out before us is is starting to break down, it's going to be really tough for us to think about this in terms of pastoral formation. But well, we're going to have to do it. It's because now anybody who even brings up the question is obviously a church growth liberal. But the point of this, the kind of whole crumbling of the path to earn your merit badges to get to where you can then be in the top, this is
because
and I think
this is what I tell my kids though.
Here's
what I tell my kids though. Just on this, I think this is so important. If you think that by following the path that's laid out for you by the educational system, whether paid or otherwise, is the path to being a pioneer and leader in the next era, then you are not a pioneer and leader of the next era, because you could already be doing it now. You don't need any of it to go do whatever it is you think you need to do. If the answer is knowledge. Right? If the answer is knowledge, you don't need it. And the issue for the LCMS is not how do we retain the rights to be only authorizers of the secret knowledge, right? The question is, how do we ensure a network of faithful proclaimers of that revealed knowledge that is going to sustain our gatherings around word and sacrament? That's the question. How do we raise up men competent and disciplined to do that? And with that, I mean, I got to say, I got a lot of good things out of the seminary, but discipline was not one of them.
This is the thing. And so I do think this is one of the differences between Fort Wayne and St. Louis. I don't know if that's true or not, but
that's good then. Good.
There was the expectation at seminary that you were at chapel every day.
No, we didn't have that at all.
It was part of your formation. In fact, it was understood at Fort Wayne to be the most important part of actually going to the seminary was being in chapel every day.
That's awesome.
Now, so there are things like, for example, if I'm teaching chemistry or physics or biology or whatever, there are things that you cannot teach online. I mean, it's very hard to virtually dissect a frog, although maybe you could do something. But how hard is it going to be for me to go rent one of these like empty Kmart buildings and to stack it full and to like reproduce like who invented the light bulb? How come I can't think of that guy's name?
Edison.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and reproduce Thomas Edison's lab in Kmart, and I'm gonna rent it by the hour.
That's sweet.
So people who are trying to do some sort of remote physics learning or whatever, they're just going to go back to the back.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And buy a frog and open up the laptop, and I've got the stuff there. And
I think you're at least 12 years ahead of the curve on that one. But I see what you did, and that's yes. You see that already happening in office space. There's not enough of this kind of thing, and I think COVID might destroy some of this as well. But it was happening where mobile workers were leasing 5 hours a week in like these open office spaces, so that when you were out, you could go into this place, you'd have a quiet desk, you could meet with people if you needed to. So that kind of online outsourcing of local realities, bringing the new market in, that's what the internet does across the board though. And then, so you're seeing it in a specific way, right? But every market is like that now.
It's the flip of the, it's like the classroom flip, right? So even now, so I'm working on a adult instruction class that someone then told me is just a flipped classroom. It's basically, I have a workbook and I have a bajillion videos.
Yeah.
And people just study that at their own pace.
Right.
And then they meet with me and we talk about prayer and spiritual discipline.
Fill me in on the flip. I know the project and I'm still waiting for the videos because I'm just going to pirate them. But what's the flipped classroom? What does that mean?
The flipped classroom is that your homework is to go home and watch a lecture. And then when you come back to the classroom, you're working on your homework with the teacher. So the teacher can come and help you do your homework. Do you see the flip? Because the lecture is scalable.
Right. It's the reversal of the order. So the teacher comes to you after you've given yourself the lecture, kind of.
Yeah, you read the book, and then the teacher helps you to do
right.
and they can come with that individual attention.
Help you
I don't
practice.
know if it's helpful on the classroom. But apparently that's even what I'm doing. But this is
here's the thing though, Brian. This gets to what I'm getting at. So if our goal is to impart the secret knowledge, then that platform is sufficient. But can that platform produce the discipline of Christianity? And that's what I think you're saying, and we're saying no to begin with because of the Lord's Supper. But maybe it's more than even just that.
Yeah, I'm almost there because my little like lab idea, my Thomas Edison in a Kmart lab. I saw a picture of Thomas Edison's lab. And I thought, if I walked into that, I would want to be a scientist.
Yeah, right.
You know,
exactly.
I mean, it's just awesome. Like everything's so you just walk in and there's all this awesome science stuff, and I swipe my card and I'm anyway. So it's a flipped library. You see a library. Why was a library important? Because not everybody could get to the books. Not everybody could get to the knowledge. So you got to pile it in one spot, and you got to give people access to it. So the public library becomes an absolute treasure 100 years ago.
Still is today. Still is today, by the way.
If you have a library, you have hope.
Yes.
You know? I mean, basically, anybody could go to the library and you could learn anything. That's the idea. But that's now it's even expanded, and it's online, and more and more and more online. I mean, every now and again I look for something online and I can't find it, and I got to go to the library. Like, do you have Camus' book, The Plague?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Camus. You know the guy Camus?
No.
Albert Camus. He was probably French. Anyhow, he wrote a book called The Plague, and apparently it's prophetic. We should read it.
But it's out of print, so you can't get it. But you specialize in reprinting out of print stuff.
It's not in the public domain yet. That's the problem. It's not online. It was written in like 1940. Anyhow, the point is that the library is flipped. So the books are online. The knowledge is online.
So I still think it gets at though, but so get to the discipline part. So how does it's more than just knowledge?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
okay. So now what? So if you bring this to the church, and this is where you've been pressing me, so let's just press there. What is it about the coming together of the Christians that is essential? So what is scalable and what is not? What can actually be accomplished at a distance and what cannot? And so much of what the service is now, it's like, all right, everybody come together and sit down and listen to me tell you something. Now, preaching is of the essence of Christian worship.
But we've redefined that word. We've so made that word up in some ways.
Yes. So we have now, though, something really. So what we have now, the expectation of Sunday morning, is very different than. This is an occasion to rethink this. We have to come together for the body and the blood. We have to come together to care for one another. So we're speaking and we're listening, we're hearing and so forth, and we're blessing one another. We have to come together to be shaped by these things. So the liturgy is a huge important part of this sort of thing.
But the liturgy has in so many ways ceased to shape us, or we've decided to discard it and it's shaping, and maybe some of both. I don't know. This wasn't the book you recommended. Read The White Plague by Frank Herbert. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Was that it? No. Is this Frank Herbert of Dune? D says this. Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, which is an awesome one-part series. If you let the reader understand. Shoot, now I forgot the other thing you made me think of.
Albert Camus.
What if it was just you said we need to get together for the bread and wine, and we get together.
The liturgy.
For liturgy, we get together to care for each other, though. You say we get together to care for each other. And I just got to immediately, what if caring for each other? We think that means like saying hi. And it is. But caring for each other is eating the bread and wine together. It's the willingness to eat the bread and wine together, to come together and eat the bread and wine together. I think we underestimate the fear of disease in the ancient world, and to think that they just didn't know. They're always so dumb or something, right? They knew that you didn't go where sickness was, and that sickness would be passed between people. They didn't think it just fell out of the sky all the time. You know, I mean, maybe back in the days of the Iliad. You know, I'm reading the Iliad slowly. So, what if the real care is the shedding of the fear of the meal and coming together and making sure everyone can get there, and then everything else that gets built around that is and should be what forms us. And the pastor's job is again to oversee the delivery of that. And then 1 Corinthians, you get this, right? You get that or that proto liturgy where Paul's saying, "Well, bring some of this and bring some of that." And what I am bothered by is we've sterilized the liturgy. We really have. It's great. I love it. It's amazing if you've been educated to sing it. But it doesn't do its own work. Not at all.
I've been, we publish the services
Let
online.
me say, if you bring your kids every week, I should back off. You bring your kids every week and you teach them and you do it with them, it will do its work. I should say that. But if we're talking about reaching the pagan or convincing the lifelonger or things like that, it just doesn't do it. But I don't want anyone to say my children love the liturgies because we sing it. But that's because we practice it, right? We do it. It's not the thing if it's not done. It's not an idea that just sits out there that we have. There is a habitus.
I've been putting the service online, and there's been a couple of times where there's the liturgy. We're doing matins, and so I put the words on the screen and everything. And there's been a couple of times where the words of the liturgy are on the screen, and I go and I take the period and I erase it and I put in an exclamation point. And I look at it and I think, yeah, alleluia, alleluia.
Yeah.
That needs an exclamation point.
Yeah.
But then I go and I delete it because it doesn't have it in the liturgy. It just has a period in the liturgy. I'm just wrestling with that whole thing. But there's a way that the liturgy...
Does German even have exclamation points? I'm not even sure it does. Like, it's such a new
really
thing.
Dark period.
No, I'm not sure they even have it. Punctuation is so modern. Punctuation is so post-type. It is completely a modern phenomenon. So I'm just not struggling with putting an exclamation point in the liturgy. Just know that every 1960s guy with a guitar put lots of alleluias with exclamation points in his private liturgies he made every week. They all did that.
But it's this idea of this kind of boom, 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 this conversation,
It's the idea. Okay, let me get this. The idea is this. The idea is that we have memorized a performance, a drama, an actual event that we reenact week in, week out, and we should have the thing completely memorized and dialogue it back and forth as if we were on stage for the world, because frankly we are. And instead what we're doing is we're reading out of a book some words we don't understand or care much about because we're bored, because we're not hungry.
Well, that gets back to it.
It does, and I'm gonna pull a comment from the side in this, where somebody said, "Where is it? Oh, come on! Here it is. People will have more appreciation for the liturgy after they come back. There is a hunger. I think people that aren't hungry aren't going to come back. So I think we will be smaller on the other side of this. But this is a moment right now where if you have that faintly glimmering wick within you, God is flushing it fired right now."
I asked the Wednesday Whatnotters, by the way, if you're not subscribed to Wednesday Whatnot at wolfmueller.co, you can subscribe. But I said, hey, I did a little survey. What is Jesus teaching us through COVID? I got about 200 answers so far. And the word that comes up most often is appreciation.
Amen to that.
Appreciation, which
gratitude.
is just a precise. Now, how about this I'm just having a dream about what church should be like at St. Paul.
Before you go that direction, Nolan Madsen says German does have an exclamation point, but it is not used often. So they certainly wouldn't have put it in the liturgy. It would have been,
right.
It would have been rare, like a semicolon.
Hallelujah.
That's just as bad as in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Brothers and sisters, we come near in the truth. We don't. You just like read it like it's like you're. Perform it, man. It's drama. The guys who want to have drama in like the chancel drama, like they're the most complete backwards people of all. You've fully realized you don't have a play that you're doing, and you've so forgotten the performance that's going on around our receiving the real thing of word and sacrament. So that's not a performance, right? That moment God is enacting this, but we're performing as we come there to confess to each other as we get there. And you are so ignorant of that you think you have to write a play so we can have drama in the liturgy. It's like going to a movie and like watching I don't know, your own private flip book animation on your book that you did because you didn't realize there was something going on. Sorry, that's a pet peeve.
No, it's okay. I am against though the idea of liturgy as performance. So you probably have to change my mind about that.
You just have to just disintegrate your zeitgeisted emotional hate of the word performance, because it's not just about, it's just, I have the same problem with the word fan. I hate the word fan, but frankly, that's what we have to call the people who like us on the internet. They're our fans. And so what are we doing right now, Brian? You and I are performing. So performance does not mean vanity. If someone your organist performs every single week, and you hope well. So the word's got a lot more to it than some sort of just kind of vain reality. What I guess I'm saying is that we have a song we're going to sing together, but the song is an opera. It is a story. It is complete. It is a concept album. And how do you expect the musicians to jam on the concept album? And the musicians are our voices, both word and song, if we don't know how to play music. And that doesn't mean actually knowing how to play music.
Okay, so here's an example. Here's what I'm against. I saw one time the acolyte at church, so they couldn't get one of the candles lit.
Your dream that you're going to share is what I'm talking about. I want, though, by the way. We're on the same page on this. So
how do you know my dream?
You shared it to me like a text message or something. No. And then you sent me a link to something that you never sent me the link to it either. So whatever that was, I never saw it. Just so you know. But you can talk.
Didn't?
No. You just.
It would blow your mind.
You're like, look at this link. And I'm like, there's no link. And I'm tired. It's like 10 o'clock. I'm going to bed.
Well, I send you something and I get the email back. It says, I used to have email back in the 21st century, but I don't anymore.
I turn that off. Shh, don't tell anybody though. I finally got it under control finally.
What is your email? Revfisk at what? Now, the thing, so the acolyte, the candle wouldn't light. So at the end of the service, they were putting out the candles. There's like 5 candles, imagine. This one's not lit. So what do? They snuff out this one, and then they pretend to snuff out this one, and then they snuff out this one and snuff out this one. And I was like, why did you do that? Like there was nothing lit. Like why did you? When you're putting out the candles, you're not pretending. You're
pretension.
You're putting out the candles, so that there's a reality to the supper.
Yes,
just like there's a reality to this conversation. Like you and I certainly aren't following a script, and you certainly aren't like, okay, now it's time to be Pastor Fisk online, which is.
But like an athlete, we perform our skill with which we have been trained.
But you though are, and you're good at this because you do not write your sermons or practice your sermons or even know what you're going to say when you go to church.
No one knows that but you, Bryan. You sounded me to the world. I have looked at the text usually.
So imagine, how we were trained to preach was you write your sermon and then you memorize your sermon.
I'm going to get brought up on charges now. Some guy during COVID is going to bring me up on charges. Oh, for pity's sake.
And then they recite the sermon that they memorized. Yeah, it's like writing a play and then directing it and
delivering a thesis argument in a scholastic tower.
That is not how we're supposed to. No. I mean, there's something immediate. So this is what I'm against. I'm against this idea that you are distancing yourself from the thing that's happening. No. There's an immediacy to the activity of the divine service.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you again here then, because preaching to groups of less than 9, which is what I've been doing every 12 minutes. Yes. I'm giving the same quote unquote sermon without it being written more than a couple thoughts around the text as notes. And the text is my outline because the text is always my outline. I preach the text. I'm not kidding. As I've done this, the sermon has changed, but it's not like early service, late service. The sermon kind of changes. There's a little bit of a dynamic sometimes with the services, so you have a different feel. But by and large, they're kind of the same thing, and they're not that big of changes. These sermons are changing all over the map, and it's because of who I'm looking at in the 7 people standing in front of me. So they're all getting like tailored sermons. They're getting like good pastoral care, like private confession kind of stuff, right? And it's not like I'm exposing anything, right? But like they're getting a very near experience of, hey, I'm your pastor, here we are, and I'm treating you like you're you and not like you're a crowd of people watching me on TV, right? And that ability, I don't know how you get that back without a small group that you're talking with, right? But what you're getting at here is that idea that somehow the proximity of the preacher to the hearer does impact the reality that and this is where closed communion is also tied into this too, right? It's the personal knowledge of the communicant and the relationship to the overseer of their soul, not as a tyrant, but as a brother who walks with them to Zion. That reality it's kind of, it's everything. That's what we've been talking about. And I interrupted you, and then I tangented twice. So, do you remember where you were?
My dream for Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's a good place to go. Good. It's awesome.
There's a coffee and donuts there at like 7:45, and everyone comes and is drinking coffee and eating, and they're all mulling around the trees and everything outside, and you ring the bell and they're like, time to go inside. So they come inside. Oh, here's, by the way, my delivery's coming.
That's exciting. I'm going to interrupt you. You know who does this? What you're talking about?
Who?
Africans.
Yeah. And the thing that's going to happen next happens in Africa, because then you come together for church, hour and a half or whatever, and then they'll
go 3.
And then
so the preacher can preach an hour and a half. I'm serious.
So I'm not.
He's dreaming now. He's like, I want it.
We'll get there. But then you have time and you mull around and you visit with each other. You talk to each other. You talk to visitors. You go over to the fellowship hall. You have an hour-long Bible class. And then there's someone, you know how the ushers are appointed. This person's going to be the usher. Someone is appointed to start the barbecue every Sunday. That's right. Yeah, and you got the big, huge barrel.
That should have been smoking since the night before, Brian. Should have been smoking since the night before.
No, the barbecue, because everyone has their own meat that they're bringing with them.
True that.
And you have your beer garden picnic tables there, and at 11:45, Bible class is over, and everyone walks out to their car and gets their coolers and brings out their
picnic.
And every Sunday.
That's picnic. Right. That's right.
And the barbecue's there, and the kids are playing, and it's just the
Africans do it.
And you're not, they call it a thing in Africa.
It's not always barbecue though, but it's effectively that. It's a potluck of sorts. How does COVID impact all of this? I don't know.
Yeah, this is, blah, blah. It's the thing. Post-COVID. I mean, this is how COVID affects it, is that we say now, hey, are we going to see each other again ever? Is it so? Eventually
you're talking post Swedish model, herd immunity. We're all just living with it, coming back every year, and it's like the flu kills so many every year, and COVID kills so many every year, and most of them are in the same age demographic. But every year, a couple younger people also get taken under, and that's just like the flu. So it's just like one more flu. Yuck! Welcome to out of Eden, right? But then you come back and you. That's the question: how do we retain the things we've discovered that we really don't want to?
That's right.
Lose again, or we're losing, or we're in the process of losing. And I'm just going to emphasize a knowledge of time being connected to the sun, which has been very valuable to me, a knowledge of my family as people in my life.
That has not happened to me, by the way. It's been the opposite. We're like on Spain schedule. It's like 9:30 at night, and we're having dinner, and
we do late dinners too. You just can't do anything after dinner then. Or you get little sleep. But in any case, just an awareness of the sun. It's not about even going to bed and getting up. For us, it's about the walk, when we're eating together. Like, when are those schedules coming together for lunchtime and things like that? When do we pass? Because now we're all still kind of living. I'm still working, right, in my home. And so I'm passing my kids more than when I was out being mobile and all that. But how do we retain just the desire to not get overwhelmed by the flood of information and speed that we were all on without really agreeing to be on that train? Like, I saw an Apple II GS when I was 8, and now I'm 42. I'm like, wait a minute. That was quick, and it changed a lot. I'm not sure I want to be on that train anymore.
Yes. This is really... No, that's a great point. I mean, the pace of things, and to recognize the joy of being as family and being home, and that's really, really good. And if there's things that the revolution of technology, there's something there. I mean, there's something about the fact that we can have a Zoom Bible study. I mean, 10 years ago, how does the plague happen? How does Corona happen 40 years ago?
Can you continue talking with that question while I go to the bathroom on my own show? That's awesome. Do it. Don't sell my house or anything.
Any super chats that come in while he's gone, go to the Around the Word Fund. I think that's the way that goes. But this question of the things that can be amplified through technology, because what does the crisis look like 30 years ago or 20 years ago, even, when you can't have a Zoom Bible class, or when you can't have an online service, when there's no YouTube, when to publish something, I mean, to put, like St. Paul used to put the services on TV, and you've got to have a whole crew running the cameras and the lights and everything else like this. And it's so the barrier to entering into mass media publishing has gone down so low that the opportunities that the church has are just simply multitude, and we ought to be thankful for that. I'm glad Jonathan wasn't here to hear me say that, by the way, because I don't think that he agrees with me on that. How do I know what you guys are saying now? Can I read the chat? Is this a thing? Welcome back.
What's it like to broadcast MIA? That's a thing. My family's going. I'm missing my walk today. My family's going for their walk today. Right now.
That's just happened right now.
Right now, they're all leaving right now. It's all right. They knew.
No, they can listen to Table Talk Radio on streaming on their walk, and they'll be
Table Talk Radio. Yeah.
I said any super chats that come in while you're gone, we're supposed to go to around the word. But
good to you guys.
Nothing.
What were we talking about?
I got skunked. I talking about how if this happens 30 years ago, and the barrier to online publications, I mean, just doesn't even exist. These platforms and tools don't exist.
Different world.
And what does it look like? I mean, how is a pastor preaching to his whole congregation in the 80s?
They wouldn't shut down nationally this way because it wouldn't move this fast because nobody was traveling that much.
Wow, that's part of isn't that interesting? So technology is a big part of the problem. Technology is something of the solution.
We wouldn't even know yet 100 years ago, I think. I mean, you might get a New York story about people dying in New York, but we'd be like, what is it? You know, there's just nothing. And then it would be just like, well, is it Spanish fever? Is it just like, they would treat it like it was, which means maybe you shut down a community, but you're never going to shut down.
So like this happened though, in 1819, I got all the old church records. They shut down church for 1 month in 1918.
But it was just locally, right?
Yeah, well, St. Louis shut down also. I mean, there's different cities.
It wasn't national. It wasn't national. It wasn't national. That's my point.
So St. Paul shut down, but I wonder what does the pastor do? I mean, how
make some phone calls if you got one? Yeah, write some letters. I'd be writing letters back then. I have a little bit here. I wish I would do more, but letters, man.
But how amazing is it that I mean, I sit here and have a Zoom Bible class.
It's incredible.
For our church.
It's a catalyst.
People are like, and they like it even more because we share the screen, so they don't have to look at me.
It's awesome. I should come. When's your next one?
Sunday. Oh, Tuesday. Oh, so we have the Sunday morning just for church, but we have Tuesday morning worldwide Bible class. That's Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Tuesday at 10 a.m. Where do I go?
wolfmueller.co/Bible, and you'll find the links to click on.
I will try to tune in. I'll watch.
I'll call on you.
Nah, I'm just gonna watch. I'm gonna come through like some fake account. It's like a bunch of weird, something geek speak, and like a one-eyed cyclops or something, picture. You were talking about technology, and
I can't read that.
No, somebody might be able to on YouTube, but you probably can't. Zoom camera, like my camera does not go over Zoom as good as it could. So Zoom doesn't really give you the full, I pay for my Zoom, so it doesn't give you the full HD. It says the old gods are the new, ? And this is one of my just kind of ponder thoughts. And it goes with another one here, which is more on my creative imagination of reality section. So don't hold me accountable for this one, but to conceive of the reality I inhabit as the dystopia in which there's a matrix-like battle between Baal and Christ raging across ages. Okay, well, whatever. Old gods are the new. As I imagine my life as a battle against false gods behind false religions, and that these are, in fact, the powers and principalities of the present darkness, though they be named or unnamed. What I've been wondering is, like, were the ancient people as dumb as we think they are, and they worshipped a bunch of statues, because that was just kind of the thing, I guess. Or did they not really think about their gods so much as gods as the thing? Like Apollo. Is Apollo like the god of the sun, or is he like the sweet up sun right there? That's Apollo. When Apollo comes out, he can be good to you, he can be bad to you, right? And so he's got no mercy. There's no mercy from Apollo, right? And so, but they didn't say, like, when they would hear it, they weren't talking about somebody's name. They were talking about the sun. They meant it. And they did that with all the gods. And now here we are, and we think that just because we don't talk about them like they're gods, that they're not our gods. that we don't worship technology, or that we don't worship mammon. Okay, but these guys had names in ancient realities. At the very least, to recognize that the source of all false teaching is Baal, who's just another version of Zeus. Every religion has the same guy, and he's assaulting Christ. So the old gods are the new. This is a phrase from, by the way, it's from Game of Thrones. And in Game of Thrones, you have the people who worship the old gods, and they're rare. But then you have the new gods, who everyone's kind of into, and they got the big cathedrals and all the neat newfangled stuff. But the thing is, the old gods are real. And they just been asleep for a while, and then they come back, and that's kind of the story, right? But for me, it's like, okay, so if we're going to talk about the battle against principalities of present darkness, who are we fighting here? Am I fighting Richard Dawkins' arguments against the existence of a deity? Or am I fighting, this dream that we call science? And who is that really? If I go back and I look at the Greek stories about this god, can I see all the same stuff? Because when I go look at Hephaestus and Wayland the Smith in the old mythologies talking about technology and the smithy and how they have no love life and they're hobbled in their leg because all they do is work all day, I got to wonder if we aren't worshiping Hephaestus as a civilization and we just call him big tech. I don't know.
I
lost my mind, I think.
No, as Christianity recedes, I think the borders of Christendom. So let me see how this argument goes. You I think will like this. So as the borders of Christendom expanded, it expanded from Jerusalem, and so it took over first oh, for heaven's sakes, the Samaritans. First the Samaritans, and then the Asians. Ephesus is next, which is magic. And then Athens is next, which is wisdom. Corinth is next, which is loose sexuality. Rome is next, which is power. Then it goes into Europe, which is the all the kind of Celtic pagan magic stuff. So you have this. So as Christendom kind of expands, it takes over these things. As Christendom recedes, you got to think of the tide going down. I think those things are exposed in the precise opposite order. So you start to see a rise in this sort of scientific magic, and then you start to see the rise of power. Then you start to see the rise of whatever. So the old gods start to come back in opposite order.
And they were never gone. But you're right that we can maybe see them better for what they are. And I think coming back where we're building statues to them might indeed be a thing that happens eventually here. When they're going to have different names, I think. But
remember this too, though, so that always Christianity was accused of being the new religion.
Yeah, it's true.
So the Romans would always say to the martyrs, "Why are you worshiping this new God, Jesus, instead of the old God, Zeus or whatever?" So the accusation, and this is amazing for us to think about, is always the accusation. So in the ancient world, to be ancient was to have some sort of credibility, and to be new was not. And for us, it's flipped
the other way around. Well, and that's what the question is a big deal. So part of why I'm wrestling with this is because of my fiction work I'm working on, which has a spiritual component to it. Don't let that make you think it'll sit on a Christian bookstore shelf ever, because it won't. In that, wrestling with the impact of powers of principalities on our created order, and trying to think about the various genres of science fiction that have existed for dealing with powers and principalities. The only one that exists really outside of like pure fantasy where you just have your own pantheons of stuff is something called, now I lost it now. Sorry. What is it? Something horror. Oh, I lost it. Cthulhu all comes out of this. It's about, for pity's sakes, something horror. Someone in the comments will share with it. The idea is that the main character in this style of story becomes aware of an ancient old power that's running everything and destroying everything, and he tries to stop it and can't. And it's always kind of the same format. But what happens is, initially, it's just sort of a conspiracy theory about this potential problem that he eventually realizes is an old god who's really there. And so my question for my story is like, well, what if we found out that there was an old god that's really there and it's Yahweh? What if that happened in 1,000 years? right? In some science fiction world, post-World War. That's the story thought a little bit. But the old gods are the new now, though. You've gone with this, though, in the direction of we think we've left behind the gods because we gave them new names. Or this is my thing. We think we left them behind because we gave them new names. And we didn't even really give them new names. The whole religious studies phenomenon of trying to say that all the world religions are the same, I think is completely true, except we just don't understand Christianity was first and everything's a bad reflection of it that gets twisted wherever it goes. But you have the same pantheons everywhere, and it's not accidental. It's because it's built into creation, and then creation fell, and these demons are tied to that fall, and they keep trying to replicate their order as ones who would take over the world and getting us to follow them. Yeah. Sorry, I've gone on a long while now.
That's right. It's the worship of the demons. I mean, this is Paul says that if you worship the idols, that you're worshiping the demons. So the demons are there building their own temples.
And
and that's real. I mean, like not like the demons, but like there's a demon who probably has a name, who's busy building a temple, in Silicon Valley and wherever, and here and next to your church and next to mine. I mean, there's an actual real individual.
I read a book a long time ago called This Present Darkness, which did something like that I didn't like and I think is wrong still to this day. But I also don't disagree with you at all. At the very least, what I'm saying is that they're named and we can understand what spirit is working and use the ancient stories to pin the tail on them. And right now, the spirit that really is running stuff is Zeus has chained the power of Chronos, time. He chained him. Remember, he put him behind bars and took over. Zeus is Baal. You got to hear that as the same thing. Baal, the Lord of the sky. You can't actually say what he is because he's everything, and everything. He kind of makes everything happen, but then he's always got problems with it. Nobody's really obedient to him either. So you have that spread going on. But then underneath Zeus, freed from the titanic rage of Kronos, is this guy Hephaestus, or in the Norse, Wayland the Smith, which I think sounds way cooler. There's actually really cool old names for him too, like Umach, like out of Ugaritic and stuff. But he basically is the god of technology. If you consider, what was technology in the ancient world, it was the smith. That's what the smith was. He was the technologist, the mechanist, right? However you want to say it. And that is indeed who our chief temples are too, at the end of the day. That is in that we trust. Medicine would be a close second, I think. But to see them as who they are and then see the old stories point out how these gods are all fickle and do all this weird stuff. Well, they're describing what worshiping them is like. They're describing the life we experience. And if you go look at that, I'm stunned by it. It's ancient wisdom for fighting the war and making it real in your head too.
If you stand on Mars Hill, where Paul stood to preach, you go up this way and there's the temple of Athena and Nike and the lightning bolt and everything else like that. That's there. And then if you go precisely the opposite way down and you look down the hill, there's the temple of Hephaestus, it's just like the Parthenon. I mean, precisely like the Parthenon, just on a smaller scale. And it's what's there now.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole temple of Hephaestus
is still there.
Is preserved. And so you can walk around it. So
you're making my paranoid reality come true, Brian.
So I remember walking around this temple with Warren Graff, and I were there 2012 or something, and or 13, and I asked him. I said, "What would be if you're just visiting in the year 20 BC?" Athens and Jerusalem, and you're just wandering around the Mediterranean, and you come here to Athens and you see the temple to Hephaestus, and there's the priests and they're offering the sacrifice. And then you go to Jerusalem and there's the temple to the Lord and you're watching the offer the sacrifice. What's the difference? And Warren was great. He said that the God in Jerusalem is holy. Mm-hmm. These gods are scoundrels, but there's a lot there, but the altar is, I mean, it's there. You can visit it now.
Well, and the God in Jerusalem's not in Jerusalem. He is Jerusalem now. And he comes to you, as the land, Adam reborn, new creation, eighth day, all that good stuff. If you'd gone to Athens in those ancient days, I don't think the temple to Hephaestus would have been the most stunning one you would have seen. And if it truly is like the most preserved, as you say, that is just phenomenal in my little RPG created world that I live in, because I love symbolism. The story has to tie a knot. And so, of course, he's still there, right? Because that's, in fact, who we worship.
Do you know why the Parthenon isn't there? Is because whenever, like, Solomon the 52nd or whatever was fighting some war, some Ottoman Empire thing, they stored all their munitions in the Parthenon.
Oops.
Yeah, that's a Turkish wisdom for you right there, you know.
Hey, I got an idea. Let's make a war machine and fill it with hydrogen and float it in the air. What do you say?
Well, as you're like, okay, here we are. We're a bunch of Turks. So what are we going to do? Where are we going to hide the bombs? Well, that Parthenon, that's a good spot.
Becky chimed in and pointed out is cosmic horror. I was looking for this right. So just for all of you who might care, just Dust is a sci-fi fantasy western cosmic horror dystopia with zombies. So steampunk too. All that. So not that Bryan cares about elves.
That's what your book is?
All.
You lost me at horror.
Yeah. Well,
you probably lost me at cosmic. You might have lost me at book.
That shit said first 10 pages. First 10 pages.
Yeah, you better hook me fast.
So you might like this. The bit about the me being excited about the Temple of Hephaestus in Athens, excuse me, is tied to this other idea that I keep playing with, which is like I have a video game I really like. It's called Fallout 4, and what I like about it is you can. I'm not going to tell you much.
I don't believe you.
What I like about it is that you can make it mimic reality. So like your character gets hungry, he has to eat, right? So the whole idea is that you're playing this kind of reality survival game that is a little bit scary. So you get a jolt of adrenaline when you have to like fight stuff and survive. But what I realized is that being a Christian means that you believe that life is in fact a complete virtual reality survival life simulator in which you can't die. Or what you die once and then you wake up in one in which you can't die ever. And that's a pretty cool way to look at life. It's a giant role-playing game tailor designed by the omniscient God to work for all of us so that each one of us has the full experience tailor-made just for us. So each piece that comes your way is a gift of God to you to be part of this dystopic video game you live in, which is not a video game, nor is it the Matrix. It's in fact the real creation he made. Just those images of these fake creations are what we need for our poor atrophied imaginations to wake up and realize where we are. At least mine. That all made sense. I think I tied a knot on it. Meanwhile, Bryan has decided to show us a map.
That's how I roll.
My picture is over your map. So, that's kind of cool. What are you doing there? Flying? Is this your video game? It looks like, what's that old video game with the airplanes?
This is Athens. Can you see? I don't know if it shows up on your screen, but there is
I can maybe make
Parthenon
it
right up there.
Hang tight. I think I get it bigger for everybody. That should have done it. Oh, but then I'm in the way. Look at you make me do this live. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
Jedi Anakin Knight Cringewalker says, look into bicameral theory for your story. Peter Watts' Blindside used it similar to what you're writing to scientifically plausible demons. That's kind of where I'm going. Super chat $5. Thank you so much, Jedi Knight. As always, I'm going to now shrink myself, and now you should all be able to see the map.
I'm so happy that you do this nerdy stuff, so I don't have to. Okay, so this is Athens. This is the Parthenon up on this hill. And then this little, see this little dip, and then this little outcrop here is Mars Hill, where it's just this rocky outcrop. It's been there. That's where they would sit. And then right down here is this ancient Athens, and there's the Temple of Hephaestus. Right there.
Over there.
Can you see the picture?
Yeah, I remember
it's like a mini Parthenon.
I've been there. What's the thing, if you go left of Hephaestus, that little open area where there's like the walks and stuff there, you're kind of hovering over right now. What's all that?
Right over here? That's just ruins.
I got in trouble there.
Some part of the ancient city center.
I got in trouble there. I didn't know it was that close to Hephaestus, but I was there. And somewhere in that area, there's like a little statue with it's pretty thick actually, but the head was off. And I kind of climbed up on it to put my head like in a picture. I got yelled at by the guard.
Yeah. There's a couple of those right there.
Yeah, that's where it was.
Headless statues.
That's it. What man? What was I? That would have been 2001, man. 19 years ago. Boom. Don't do that, kids. Don't be dumb. Don't go to foreign nations and break their laws. It's a bad idea. I didn't have much trouble, but, don't do it in the Philippines. Goodness. Remember that story?
Singapore.
Jeez, Singapore. That's the one. Goodness gracious. Okay, now you don't get to take up my whole screen anymore. You just bought some space. How much time you got left here, Bryan? What else do you want to talk about? I had something else, too. I'm going to go look for it after I get your face smaller. There we go. You're like massive right now.
I could back up.
Massive. Look at his head. It's like an orange on a toothpick. Easter egg. Why won't it let me do this? There we go. You can talk. They don't need me. You can say something cool.
Let's see. I don't know what else to talk about. I haven't heard what you thought about this idea that, so we are addicted to technology. I'm happy to make this point is that it's one of our problems is we don't think in terms of institution and office, but always in terms of advance in technology. And that's because our minds are given over to evolution, right? We just think of things in terms of evolution and not in terms of institution and so that means the things that change are given more value in our imaginations than the things that don't change. And it's one of the reasons why probably like fantasy goes back to a pre-technological world
Sometimes.
because or in some ways it'll advance past, and I think maybe your steampunk stuff is like the opposite of this. It's like I got to go mix like this obsession with
what I loved
technology
when I
with
did
the
this
medieval,
last summer, Brian, I spent like a week studying these genres because I was really curious about them and discovering like the work that's been done on them. They're used for different intents when it comes to theme and story. And the steampunk particularly is similar to the dystopia. It's a hunger for nostalgia. It's a looking to the past for a better future. And dystopia is looking for the future to overcome the past. So they're kind of like mirrors of each other. Steampunk goes back, it's better than it was. Dystopia goes forward, it's worse than it is. And I'm gonna shove them together with some zombies and stuff. And it's called Cosmic Horror. And Sean Johnson, a shout out to Sean Johnson, who points out that Cosmic Horror is Lovecraftian because it's Lovecraft who wrote the first book, which had all of Cthulhu, I don't say it right, and all that. And Sean Johnson and I graduated 8th grade and we're confirmed together. And Sean, how are you doing, man? It's been a while. Thank you. I was kind of a nerd and a jerk back then, so if I ever was rude, I'm sorry. Thanks for following. And all that kind of stuff.
I imagine nobody that I went to 8th grade with is hanging out.
Well,
maybe.
I think that's pretty unique. You know what? Believe it or not, I also have someone I went to 6th. I moved in 7th grade. So I went to 2 different Lutheran schools. And out of my 8th grade class, Sean is right there. Out of my 6th grade class, but graduating the same year, there is other LCMS pastor who was 1 year ahead of me at the seminary, which was completely, I'd left in 6th grade. Like I'd never seen the guy again, right? And then we're at the seminary in the class together. Wow, that's odd. Zachary McIntosh, are you out there, man? He should be out on the roster still somewhere. Hey, so, okay. You talked about evolution a moment ago. What if I told you I think I believe in evolution now?
Probably. Doesn't surprise me. All right, let me have it.
So what if...
You and Zeus.
What if... Well, this is the thing. Like so much of the modernist materialist assertions are based upon major assumptions about limitations of reality, which science has pretty clearly found that they were wrong about some of these things. And again, the whole question of quantum physics is that we kind of don't know when you get down real low. It looks real weird and we can guess, but we're not sure at all. And so we can do some math instead, and that's what string theory is. And so they're off doing that because they can't actually figure out what's really going on. All right, so... Can I stop just to like a quick point on that, and that is that so we've been doing science or something like science for long enough to know that every generation is foolish. I mean, yes. Like the mark of science Blind.
is that the last generation was wrong. But we've been through how many generations of this?
Blind 12, and dogmatic.
15 generations.
Yeah.
And so we know that every past generation was wrong, but for some whatever reason, science says, but we're right. Well, how you know what you are? You're tomorrow's dummy.
That's right.
It's
just like the guy who says this is the last days because look how bad it is. It's like, man, everybody said that since he left. You know, just can't keep saying it.
Now, as Christians, we're supposed to think it's the last.
But not. They mean like really, really, like for sure my lifetime, right? And like I hope for this, and I'm trying to teach myself to expect it more. But we really shouldn't look at the news and say this time for sure we're right. It's the last days for sure.
Well, what this means is that I can look at the scientific consensus today and say
it's wrong.
It's wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it always is wrong. In fact, the whole point of science is that it's always wrong. Because as soon as it's not wrong, then it's not science.
And now it's a law or a theory.
Something else.
Yeah. So okay, so you stop me. So we're kind of in agreement on that. But I wanted to push again on this quantum physics thing, which the more they look at it, the more they don't understand it. I'm not going to try to detail all of it today. But the long and short is that whatever's going on at the subatomic level is changing all the time. And it's changing in ways that we can't understand, to the extent that the best the scientists can do is say, it seems to know we're watching us. We know that much. That's about it. Okay, so if God created all this, and this is in fact the Word of God that is the substantial reality of nature itself. Let's say we got down to the level right before Word of God was heard out of the microscope or whatever, right? We're right down at the bottom level. Why would I not believe that it could mold itself to meet the needs of the present creation, however it blessed well felt like? And if it were to do that, why could it not, within the radical, epigenemic, multi-layered level coding of the DNA code, be able to manipulate itself chemically by design to change in order to help creation curb itself to stay alive long enough for Jesus to save all the people he wants to save? I don't have a problem with that. And if that's why we have white skin, black skin, if that's why we have, a long beak, short beak, if he curved survival of the fittest to make it serve his creation's ability to always produce and evolve, as in get better because he designed it to do so, and this is what we always do, and that's life itself, and that's what eternity will be, well, I don't have a problem with that. But that's not what most people mean when they say evolution. But I don't have a problem with that. And I don't want to let them have the word now. I don't think it's fair that they only get to describe their little paltry accidental mutation as evolution. I can't describe quantum physics arising into the reality I experience as a constant evolution created but sustained by God. Why not?
I'm trying to figure out if I want to understand what you're talking about.
Did it? So I hope it made some sense to somebody. It's existential again. I'm sorry. Too deep, too fast.
That's all right. I'm glad you. It's another place. I'm glad you spend your time thinking so that.
Zach McIntosh is at Concordia, San Antonio, which means he's in your neck of the country.
Wow.
How far is it to San Antonio for y'all?
Well, it's like an hour and a half when people are driving, but like 50 minutes now, COVID time.
Because there's less traffic?
There's no traffic. Yeah.
All right. Evolution.
I'll go check it out.
I got more evolution coming because I think, I don't know.
No,
the real problem is thinking we're going to evolve to be something better. Think about like the Cro-Magnon man that they always trot out with the weird looking skull.
Yeah.
Right? Well, what if that could happen in 3 generations with epigenetics just because God did it? Because that's how he designed creation to be resilient. Can evolution be understood as the resiliency of a created order refusing to die because God won't let it? I mean, why not? And this is not to argue for death before the fall. This is not to argue for evolution as being the place from which man arose. Not at all. Don't even let me be heard going that way because I despise that stuff.
Well, that's the problem is you got like 5 big problems. Evolution has a bunch of things hanging around the neck. You got death before sin. You have an essential continuity between animals and man. But
we have that because they come from us because we're the dust. We're the dust. They are us as an extension. We are the steward and Lord in this, again, cosmic mystery.
So that's
sacramental mystery.
You're saying the opposite of evolution.
But that it arises, if we understand evolve as meaning to arise, order to arise out of chaos, the only way order arises out of chaos is because God speaks and it comes to be, right?
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right.
Here's the thing. There's a guy named Marcuse who in the 60s said the way to beat the conservatives is to take their terms, change them, and then use them all the time. And eventually the new meaning will take over. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'm tired of like letting evolution only mean worshiping death when it can mean the progressive reality of God. But it doesn't have to be evolution. The bigger idea for me is this idea that God is so present in his design, that his speaking initially was so clean, that even with the fall now, it can continually react to us in such a way as to preserve the good. And that is a gorgeous thing to confess.
Well, this is a true thing. I mean, I think what you're pressing towards, if I can just simplify it for myself or say it in a way that I can get behind it, and that is that not only is the Word of God essential in redemption, it's the Word of God is essential in creation. And that means something much more than we normally think.
Yeah.
So that this world is a manifestation of the speaking of God, and we can experience the world because we still retain in some way, even though fallen and diminished, the original intent of being created in God's image. So that we can read the world, which is not something that anything else in creation, maybe the angels can, but we can read the world. We can have an experience even of ourselves. And that's because we are word in flesh, the created word in flesh, not the redemptive word in flesh. But
yeah, that we can talk. We can put words down and take them up again, which is That is unique, I think, and to intuit a future from the present in ways that I know some animals you can show they know how to use a tool and whatnot. I'm talking about significantly greater leaps than that. That I can leave behind me words which you will find and learn to understand. That's a phenomenal thing. Whether genetic code can do that,
that's a pretty big jump to know if I'll ever understand what the heck you're talking
especially
about.
with my handwriting. Especially with my handwriting. Interesting comment. Jedi Knight says, remember, time is a creation, so time is subject to death and decay. Yeah, I do. I'm not sure where that connects. It definitely does connect to time-space theory, which is what I'm wrestling with, and God being outside of that and embracing and relishing that reality. And then he asked, what is decayed time? Yeah, I'm with you on that one, though. I don't know. What's decayed matter? It's what we call matter. It's undecayed matter. We really don't know what it is. And undecayed time, we don't know what that is. All we know is decayed time. There's not enough of it. I know that. So, hey, Bryan, we're going on 2 hours here. What have we not talked about that you want to say before we close up here?
We've talked about, in fact, we've talked about a lot of things that I didn't even want to talk about.
Oh.
I've got nothing on my list.
Good.
Have we answered everybody's questions?
No, I doubt it. What do you think about this? I believe that in about 2 weeks, we will have a much better idea of what permanent post-COVID life looks like. Not that what's there in 2 weeks will be what it is, or that it will retain that through whatever second wave comes this fall and all this, but that we're going to get it. You're going to be able to kind of get an imaginary glimpse of what it will look like once we get this thing where it is. Mm-hmm. And I've been waiting for that more than even like the release factor, because, I could be out and go buy groceries or whatever against, released where I wasn't allowed to before or whatever. That's not a law we have here. But to me, that doesn't matter as much as for me as a person to be able to say, okay, now's the time when I think I can really start to think about planning next year. And until we get there, I'm hoping it's in 2 weeks. So what I'm asking is, what do you think? Do you think we'll know in 2 weeks? Do you think we need another 2 months before we kind of see
I saw someone ask this question. They said, what decisions can you make now that you're going to be happy about next Thanksgiving?
Oh, even like a week from now, man.
And this is a really interesting thing, but it's hard to have perspective. I mean, it's one of the great gifts of the COVID is that it's wrecked our sort of sturdy assumptions about tomorrow. It's reminded us that just because today's like yesterday, doesn't mean tomorrow is going to be like today. So that's nice. So it's just reminded us that, man makes plans, but the Lord delights in messing those up. And so to not trust our plans so much, but I think, I don't think it's going to be 2 weeks. I think it's, well, maybe there's a couple of things. I'm not sure we're going to realize the full effect of this for years.
Well, True. That's not kind of what I'm asking though, but I agree. Because that's a deeper question, I think, what you're saying there.
I think there was a lot of things that were happening. It's like, how the prophets talk about the shaking. Uh-huh. They're always talking about the shaking.
Yeah.
And the shaking, if something's not sturdy, it falls. And so there's a lot of things that are standing up. But then there's a shaking. The Lord shakes things. And then the things that are not kind of bolted to the ground, they all tumble over. And this is a great shaking. And so, but the problem is, I don't know if we've seen the things that have fallen because we just haven't been able to leave the house to see them.
But if you had told me in November that Donald Trump would shut the borders to the United States in April and they'd let him, I wouldn't have believed you.
Oh, no.
It has changed so much. The dynamic has changed so much. And to get to that shaking itself, the debate, whatever side of U.S. borders you're on, the debate which says open borders, there are no such things as borders, is a debate that does not live in the same reality as viruses and thieves and other things like them. This is a gut check of reality into our civilization in a way we couldn't ignore. I'm so grateful for that because we cannot, all of the push of the progressive left to remove every moral boundary ever. This is God's gut check on that. I'm not saying this is a response or some miracle for, God's intervening with miracle things. I'm just saying, like, physically, it's gut checking the actual thought. The ideology cannot sustain itself in this reality. And that's a gift to us.
So globalism is done. I mean,
It has
was
to be,
maybe
right?
like it was.
I mean, I think
there was
it
a
forced it
single
on
punch. I mean, Donald Trump was a first punch, and then this is now. I mean, I think this is a knockout punch. It's because when there's so you think of the medieval city, right? All the peasants are living out on the land farming, but when the bell rings and the armies are coming, when the attack is coming, you run behind the wall.
Yeah.
You go into the city, and so you extend out in freedom, but you retreat in danger, and it's so helpful to sort out what you're retreating behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so we retreat to our homes. Kids come back from college, work. I mean, companies contract, nations contract, cities contract, everything contracts. And when in that contraction, you see where the borders are.
Mm-hmm.
You see where you see where the safety is. It has to happen in church too. So there's a contraction in church, and that contraction is, I'm particularly interested. What did we retreat to? And we retreat to God's word, and that's just great. We retreat to prayer, which is exactly what we want to. So Psalm 46, the city where God dwells in the city, and so we come back to that city of God, and so I think that's happening now.
I agree.
So
I agree. I think people are seeing people in ways we haven't for a good long while, and the technology is still here, so you can't blame the technology entirely for this, although you kind of can. But it's also kind of the I don't want to say savior, but it's been the saving grace of technology, is that as we've lost travel, effectively we've lost travel, right? At least the way we experienced it before.
Mobility.
But then there's other tech that now is doing more. Now this is good and bad, and God always uses it all for the good of those who love him in Christ. But just to be aware of this, what do we keep of tech, and how much do we need to rely on it now? And some of that will be told over the next 2 years. How much is... Bryan, my question is this. Am I going to live in a different government in 2 years? Am I going to have different rules about what I can do as a citizen of this country with regards to my religion or not? And I want to know that as soon as possible, because I'm going to adjust. I'll figure it out. I like my rights. I'm a Westerner. I got my live free or die shirts and all that, right? But if they take it away, and it's gone, I just want to get the church dealing with it. I want to get the congregation handling it and not believing the world ended just because the American dream did.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, someone suggested to me that this is a practice run for the church under persecution.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's true or not.
You got me thinking about martyrdom. I told my wife the other day, you know what? I think my goal for this family is we're all going to be ready for them to kill us. That's like my primary goal. We're ready for it.
Yeah.
Ready for it.
Did
I tell you, I'm doing a lot of stretching these days with my prayer. I kind of do them together and back and forth, and memorizing stuff. I'll meditate on the term and do some stretches. Blah, blah, blah. So one of the stretches I've been doing is where you lie on your back and you kind of get your elbows underneath you. So you're kind of lying on your neck. If you can imagine me on the ground right now, and you just kind of lift your legs up, and it's good on you guys who have bad backs always do. You kind of pull your legs over you and you just you tug on your feet, and you're basically pulling on your back. But when you do that, if you have enough, care and you've done it enough, you can start to put your legs back straight, and you can lie there sort of on your elbows and head, mostly a little bit of shoulders, completely vertical and upside down. And the only view you have pretty much is for me, my bare feet and my ceiling. And I think it was the second time I did that, I realized, actually what I thought was, I wonder if this is what it looked like for St. Peter. And ever since I had that thought, I do this stretch every day, once or twice a day now, morning and evening. And that is the thought I now rejoice to have go through my head. Not, I wonder if, but I'll be ready. I'll be ready to smile upside down. I even won't get a head rush for a while. Because my hands will hurt. But the head rush, I'll be like, no, I got this. And why not? Why not see life that way? Why not see life that way? So, Bryan, I want to thank you.
But be of good cheer.
Amen. You've been the one to inspire this way of thinking about stuff, and so I want to thank you. You've been a friend through the last couple of years, and
God be praised.
You've been praying for it too, right? I know. So rejoice with me in that. Thank you for your words. And there have been tons of comments in the sidebar this afternoon about the work that Bryan does. So I know you all know where to find him, wolfmueller.co. In fact, he's so much bigger than I am. He advertises on my show on Saturday mornings because that's how big he is. He can afford it.
God, it's just worth it for the rise that it gets out of you.
That's right. No, it's good TV all the time. So thank you for your time, Bryan. We got to do this again in a little bit. If you like this, it'll be there on YouTube, of course, but we plan to get it on the Podbean podcast as bonus content for this week. Also, if you are listening on Podbean because of the lack of sermons over the last couple of months, goodness gracious, month and a half. I know there's a lot less content on the podcasting channel besides Saturday Morning Chill, and with me not doing the creative stuff every week as much. So if you're on just the podcast, I apologize for that. Some of that's COVID. I'm trying to figure out how to fix that. This will be there if you're at the end of it now for that purpose, for podcasting content. Oh shoot. And then I had another thing on that. But Patreon. But if you're on Podbean, you're like, well, where'd all the content go? Well, if you're on Patreon, there's more content there now as well. So if you're a subscriber on Patreon, I'm putting up something every week that's as random as it can get. Last week, I did 2 book reviews, both theological. This week, you got a little taste of what it looks like inside a writer's 4 drafts in front of them at one time, trying to crank something out for a deadline. So, whatever. You want to see inside my life, Patreon lets you do that. It also keeps all this stuff going. So eventually, maybe I can afford to advertise on Bryan's shows. But
rates are way too high.
I doubt I would throw the money away. So anyway, Patreon, Mad Mondays is my newsletter. You can sign up for that in the links below. Bryan's newsletter comes out. It's called Wednesday Whatnot. You can sign up for that at wolfmiller.co along with everything else that he does. St. Paul Austin is his church. They got good services with like lots of video cameras and editing and production value. It's quite the performance, I hear. Oh, I got him with that one. So, Bryan, I'm going to give you a last word, and then I'm going to say rock on when you're done. But again, thanks for being here tonight. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support. What do you think? Send us on our way.
We forget all the time that Jesus sits on the throne and he rules and reigns all things for the sake of the church. That's you. That's me. So God be praised for that. Jesus knew about Corona a long time ago and he wasn't afraid. So God be praised.
Yeah, we will not wallow in the muck with those who have no hope. Rock on.